Hello everyone, hopefully you all are well. So if you're part of the Battlefield 5 community, you will know that the EA is actually coming out with an update for the Battlefield 5 community, for the Battlefield 5 game, later, sometime in November. And at the time of this recording, it is like October 30th. It's basically a Halloween, almost. I think it's like October 30th. So it's almost November. And in November, it's a pretty big month. Obviously, we have the new gen coming out for consoles, and we have a bunch of new games coming out, which is great. It's great. But me being very heavily involved in Battlefield 5, I couldn't help but notice, out of all the chaos and everything going on in November, that EA is actually coming out with an update for the Battlefield 5 community that is basically adding it's like custom servers in Battlefield 5, which they've said they were going to do back in like February or something earlier this year, which is great. It's great that we're finally getting it. It's cool. But yeah, I thought I'd go ahead and let you guys know that it is coming. If you're, maybe you are in the Battlefield 5 community, you play the game and you watch my content, thank you very much. I appreciate that if you do. But yeah, it is coming out in November sometime, and that's basically all we're getting. We're not getting any new maps or anything. It's just, I think we're getting 2 new elites and the custom server creation, I think it is. So we're going to be getting that sometime in November, which is cool. It's great. Kind of did the same thing with Battlefield 1 where you can make your own custom servers. So that's cool. We're finally getting that, which is great. But I thought I'd go ahead and touch on the subject of Battlefield 5 and basically its entirety, like its life cycle. The game, as you all may know if you are part of the community, EA has actually discontinued their support for the game. And they announced this earlier in somewhere around like March or something, June, somewhere around there. Anyway, they stopped supporting Battlefield 5. They will not have any more content coming out. Nothing like that will be coming out anytime soon, or ever really, because they stopped supporting the game, which is really sad. And I thought I'd go ahead and touch on this because I just thought, not like recently, how much potential this game had. Really, it had a lot of potential. In its initial release, yes, the game was very much hated for a lot of reasons. Not only was the presentation of the game very bad, but on top of that, it was a bad game to start with. It was so unpolished. It was released very early, way too early to the public. With a little bit more work on it and maybe a couple more months, I definitely think it could have been brought to the public, but I don't think it should have launched when it did and what it had with it. But I was looking at a quote that people keep bringing up specifically for the Cyberpunk delay and all that, which I've covered in my previous video. If you want to check that out, totally you can if you want to. But a quote shared by the famous Shigeru Miyamoto, and basically it's that a delayed game is eventually good, but a bad game is always bad. Now this does apply to quite a lot, including Battlefield 5, but at the same time it doesn't. And here's why. In the beginning, when Battlefield 5 was first released, it was totally bad. Undeveloped, not ready to release, yet they released it anyway. And guess what? It got the backlash it deserved. It was bad. Everyone knew it. They stopped playing it. It still had a community, obviously, but, people stopped playing it. But later in the months, as time went on, EA kind of started picking it back up, more specifically with the Pacific expansion that came out, I believe it was last Halloween. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments if you know the correct date or anything, if you're watching. That is, if anyone watches this video. But, I think it was last Halloween that it was released. And at that point, the game was actually really fun. It was a very positive experience. People really did enjoy it. They started flocking back to the game. It really started receiving the support that I wish we would have seen in the beginning of the game, But obviously, I wish that the content, the Pacific, would have been in the beginning of the game. I wish it would have launched with the game, because if that was the case, this game would have so much support. It would have been such a good Battlefield. Obviously, they need, I keep saying obviously because, well, it is, they needed to add more in the beginning of the game, and they could have added more with the Pacific, other than the Pacific, with America and the European theater, which we recently got. But anyway, that's just my point. Like, the game stopped receiving support so quick. And with the expansion of the Pacific, we got new maps, new tanks, new planes, new guns, a new faction. We got new packs and stuff like that, which was really cool, and everyone loved it. And like I said, they came over, they started flocking to it. The Pacific received support for like a couple months later, up until the Solomon Islands, and then it was discontinued. The game was not being supported anymore with big content like that, which was really sad. I was very sad to see that, because like I said, the game was receiving support. It was finally getting fun, and then they just screwed themselves. They screwed themselves so hard. I don't know why, but I really think this game could have went far. They could have added, the Eastern Front. They could have added maps like Okinawa, like we saw in Battlefield 1943. They could have added Guadalcanal. They could have added a Midway, planes only map. It would have been so nice. It would have been so cool. But they don't do anything for free. That is the one thing I've learned from EA, is they don't do anything for free. Take Battlefield 1, for example. All the expansions to the game, which they had a lot of expansions. Battlefield 1 still is receiving support. Maybe not giant updates and all this, but it's still receiving, a little bit of support. And it received initial support for quite a while after it was released versus Battlefield 5, but that's because, look at Battlefield 1. All of its additional content you had to buy. You had to buy the additional content. And because of that, they came out with a lot of it, because they knew people would buy it. They knew that the support for the game would keep continuing on and on and on. Versus Battlefield 5, where they're giving all this stuff away for free. And because of that, they're not making any money. They're not making as much money as they'd want. So guess what? They're just going to quit on it, because they're not making money. In conclusion, EA is just a money-hungry company. They don't do anything for free, which is really sad. Because I see games like Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves has monthly updates. Monthly. They have updates monthly, and these monthly updates bring so much to the game. And they've been doing this for about 2 years now. 2 years, and because of that, the game has grown so much. It has, a pretty decent community. Toxic at times, but it has a lot of support for the game. And because of these free updates you're giving away, the developers have so much praise to them, and I don't blame them. They deserve it. They really do deserve that praise, because that is something a lot of development companies aren't willing to do. One specifically, EA. They will not do it unless they're making money. That is the only thing. Versus Rare, which they just do it because they know it's good for the consumers. They do it for the players. These other people, they're not doing it for the players. They're not. They're not doing it for the players. If they're not getting any profit from it, they're not going to do it. And to some extent, I can understand that, because, obviously you need money to develop things, like games and stuff. But big companies like EA has so many titles. You're not just getting all your income from one specific title. You're getting it from multiple different, games. So I don't understand why they couldn't have kept up the support for the game. On top of that, they had the armory, which they were updating constantly. And I even see people now, new level players, like level 16s, who bought the Ashen Pack or whatever, or bought this, bought that, so obviously people were still paying. It's not like no one was buying stuff, and it's not like they weren't getting any money. I just don't understand why they discontinued the game. I mean, it would have been so cool to see stuff from like the Eastern Front, playing as the Russians, or playing as the Russians versus the Germans. It would have been so cool, man. It would have been so awesome to see that. And we just didn't see it. It's the one thing, one place a lot of World War II games don't go to is the Eastern Front. We could have seen that here, and that would have really set it apart from a lot of games like maybe Call of Duty World War II, but we didn't see that, and it had so much potential. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's my opinion on Battlefield 5 and everything that's happened with it in its life cycle. But yeah, in conclusion, you know, if we look at past that, main thing is, yes, Battlefield 5 is receiving an update sometime in November. Just wanted to let you guys know. Hopefully you guys did enjoy, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.